Hello there. In this video we're going to show you how you can use the software Fluid Designer for 3D printing to design your own chess set. I'm going to show you how you can recreate one of these items here, but the others are just very similar. Just a case of moving a few points around to create the other objects to complete the set. So we're going to show you how you can create this queen. This is a real version of the queen. It's not a great photograph, I know, but this has been 3D printed at Shapeways using their layer sintering method. So the software that we're going to use is Fluid Designer for 3D printing, and if you download the software for free and then go to the toys section, you will see some free examples of these chess pieces, and if you just drag and drop the object onto the workspace, this is the object that we're going to recreate in this video. And one of the things about it is it's got a decimate modifier, a wireframe modifier, a solidify modifier and a subsurf modifier to smooth it off and make it 3D printable. Now the object behind this, this is the queen, so if I just drag and drop this onto the workspace, this is essentially what we use to create the queen. And there are essentially two parts to this. There's the profile curve, that's the yellow line on the left there, that's the profile curve, and the queen itself, which is just the profile curve wrapped right around. We've then obviously got to add those modifiers to make it solid and 3D printable. So how do we actually create this? Well, if we just go to File and New, if we go to 3D templates cross sections, there are different options here. We could use a square template or a pentagonal template, but I'm going to use the circular cross section template. And so if I just drag and drop that onto the workspace, what we've essentially got here are two objects again. There's the main body, which is actually a Bezier curve, and the profile curve on the side there. If I just hide the main body for a moment, there's the profile curve, which is wrapped around the main body of the object to create the main body. Now this has currently got a modifier applied to it, a solidify modifier, when you open this up, so you can just remove that to go back to the basic shell, the basic outline of this object. Now if I just go to view and front, I'm just going to switch on the screencast keys, so you should see any key presses I make over here. And I'm going to bring in the other queen just to show you what it looks like, and to also to work to it in a way. So if I go to File and Append, if I just go up through the menu system until I get to the Groups folder, and the queen was in Toys, and so it's the chess queen object that I want. So if I just append that, so I just bring that into the workspace here from the other file, this is what I'm going to create out of this object here, or combination of these two objects. So what do I want to do? Well, first of all, I could switch to wireframe mode so that this looks a little bit like this. It isn't a wireframe at the moment, it is solid, well, it's a shell at the moment, I should say. It's not quite solid yet. So I'll switch to wireframe mode just so we can see what we're doing here. And I'll highlight I need to make sure I highlight the profile curve on the left hand side there. Now I need to go into edit mode to change this. So I need to press the tab key on the keyboard. Now if we move these points around, you can see I can change my profile of my default object. And as you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 control points along the side here. Now I'm going to need a few more control points than that. If we look here, we've probably got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got 9 there in the original object. Now obviously it depends on what it is that you're creating as to how many of these control points that you use, but I've just highlighted all 5 of them by holding down the shift key. And if I click the right mouse button and select subdivide, what should happen is I should get additional control points, look, between the existing ones. So I've now got a total of 9 there. Now if I highlight all of them again, and I can highlight all of them by pressing A on the keyboard to select all, and then one thing you should notice here is that this is a bit rounded in shape, whereas this is more angular, and I can change the way the control points work by clicking the right mouse button again and setting the handle type to vector. Now when I select vector, we get straight lines between the control points. If I just switch it back to automatic again, you can see that's more rounded. Vector type gives me straight lines between the control points. So really now what I want to do is to modify this profile to make it look like this queen over here. So I'm going to have to zoom in until I get the grid in millimeters, and I'll have to pull that down and just pull it back up a little bit. So I'm just leaving a hole in the center there. View in front again, and then if I just select the next control point, so I need to move that across to the right and down, something like that, and then the next control point I need to pull it down this time, and I need to pull it in from that one. Now this profile obviously is going to depend on the object that you're going to create. In this case I'm just copying this this queen, but you can position this wherever you want and create whatever outline that you want. So I'm going to pull that one in there. This one I think I need to pull it in a little bit more. I've gone a bit too far there. Just push it back a bit. I'm not going to worry about getting exactly the same as the one on the right, just generally. Now I need to pull this one up. If I just zoom in, until I get millimeters and pull that across, and we can pull this one across here and up, so it's more or less in line with that, and I need to pull this one out here now, perhaps pull that in a bit and move that control point up there. So that's more or less matching what I have over here, probably a bit narrower here. And that's probably in as well. Now the exact shape of this, the exact outline, the exact profile, you can decide for yourself. I've more or less copied what's on the right there. Now when you're happy with the profile, if you just press the tab key to come out of edit mode and highlight the main body of the object itself, and if we go back to material mode, you can see that this isn't a wireframed object at the moment. And it is in fact still a curve, a Bezier curve in fact. So what I need to do is, once you're happy with the profile, is convert it to a mesh. And if we press the tab key to go into edit mode now, you can see it's actually made up of a mesh of faces, edges and vertices. That's what we've actually got now. Now if we click on the profile curve again, and if we press tab key to go into edit mode, it'll have no effect as I move these now. They're not connected anymore. The profile curve is not connected to the main body of the object, so I can press X on the keyboard and actually delete that now. I ought to delete these two objects as well, because I don't want to send those to be printed. And if I just zoom in on this now, this is just a shell, it's just a profile shell that we've created here. So what I need to do now is give that some thickness. And I can do that by, first of all, I'm going to create a decimate modifier. Because at the moment the face count of this is 768, and that's quite large. So if I just go to wireframe, you'll see what I mean by sort of 768 faces here. If I change this ratio, if I just drag the mouse to the left, you can see the face count is decreasing and the number of lines on my object is decreasing as well. And that's what I need to do in order to make this 3D printable, based on the size that we've actually got. It's about 35 millimeters tall, I think, something like that. So we want this face count to be reduced, basically. Now my object isn't a wireframe at the moment, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually add a wireframe modifier, so that really changes it. Notice I'm still in material up here, but I've now got rid of the faces and replaced it with a wireframe. Now in here I want to tick all of these options, tick crease edges, and I'm going to set that down to 0 as well, the crease weight. That's going to give me a kind of smooth surface when I've finally finished. Now this object really hasn't got any thickness at the moment. It's 0.02 thick, so that's not going to 3D print. So what we want to do is we want to solidify this with a solidify modifier. Now the thickness at the moment is still quite small there. It's in fact 0.01. It's no thickness. So we need to increase that, and I'll go to 1. I'll go to 2 millimeters. Now you can see that when I do that, things are looking pretty weird here. We need to kind of smooth that out. Now one way to do it is to change this offset value here. At the moment the offset's -1. What that means is the body of this is being applied on the inside of my wireframe. If I change this to +1, the body is being applied to the outside of the wireframe. If I put this at 0, it puts it on the inside and the outside. Now I still get some slightly unpleasant looking appearance there, so if I just move this up slightly, it does tidy it up. But we're going to do a couple of other things actually, so I'm going to leave it at 0, and I'm going to tick high quality here as well. Now sometimes when working with these models you can tick even thickness, but sometimes when you do it things go crazy, so you need to remove that. And the same can happen when you tick them up here as well. It just depends on the geometry of your model. So we've got our essential shape there. Now what we need to do is to smooth it off, and we can do that by using a subsurf modifier. And this will smooth off the surface. Now it doesn't look very smooth there at the moment, but if I change this to 2 and then 3, you can see as I increase this value here, my object becomes smoother and smoother. I could try changing the thickness up to 3 millimeters as well. That might make it a little bit better and give me a much better chance of 3D printing this. Okay, now you can't go too high with the views here because we've got 250,000 faces here. If we go higher, which will smooth it off more, we'll end up with too many faces. So that should probably work now. So what we want to do is apply these modifiers, and we could go to Tools, Object Tools and convert it to a mesh. That'll apply the modifiers. But fortunately in Fluid Designer for 3D printing, if we just export this, and I'm just going to export it as a wavefront object to the desktop, and I'm going to say Chess Queen as the name. As you do that, Fluid Designer will actually apply those modifiers for you as it saves it. So rather than applying the modifiers, it's better to keep them in the document that you're working with, and then check your mesh in NetFab Basic and see whether or not it will print. If you can't make it printable, if NetFab can't fix it, you may need to come back and just modify some of the values here. So we'll just let that save the file, and then if we go to NetFab Basic and go to Project and Open, go to the desktop, open the Chess Queen, we will get a warning red triangle here because of the way that we've made this structure, but we've not gone too mad in terms of the geometry of it, and because we've smoothed it off with the subsurf modifier, we should be able to finish off with an object. Ooh, actually that's not looking great at the moment. All those red bits there they're a bad sign, but I'll run NetFab and see whether it'll sort it out. So we click update. So yeah, so we've got some edge problems and hole problems, so we run automatic repair. The thing we've got to look out for here is invalid orientation. We haven't got any at the moment, so we should be okay. if we get a big number here for invalid orientation, NetFab generally can't fix that very well. But edges and holes, usually no problem. So let's just let NetFab run through that. And once this gets to the end, if we hit update, yeah, it's set it all back to 0. So all we need to do is apply the repair and remove the old part. And essentially that subsurf modifier, well, hopefully that subsurf modifier has done the job. We still might come across a problem here as we go to part and export it as a wavefront object. And I'm going to save it as the chess queen. We still might get some error message here. Nope, we haven't done. Sometimes you get an extra error message there. That should be okay now. So we say it's not usually a good sign when you're getting lots of red here. So just changing the geometry slightly might make that profile better and smoother. It's probably because we used vectors here when we did this one. If I just by changing all of these to vectors, that is what can cause that problem of the red in NetFab there. It tends to mean the faces are the wrong way round, but NetFab did say it fixed it, so we hopefully we should be all right with that. But if in doubt, if you have a lot of problems, just change them to a rounded profile. Keep them as a rounded profile, and you'll have less problems. Okay, so that's how you can create a chess piece similar to those in Fluid Designer for 3D printing. Thank you.